The rain had just begun to fall over Verona when the black Maserati rolled to a slow, deliberate stop outside the church. Not the kind for prayers, but the kind for deals sealed in shadows. Inside, the air smelled of roses and old marble, soft, romantic, innocent. It didn't match the man, standing at the altar at all. Leonardo Vitale, Italy's most feared mafia king, a legend wrapped in tailored black. His reputation entered rooms before he did. Cold, calculated, untouchable. But today, he was waiting for a wife he'd never asked for. He didn't glance at the guests, didn't acknowledge the whispers. He only stood there, hands behind his back, jaw carved in quiet tension. Anyone who didn't know him would call him calm. But the men who did know him, his guards lined along the pews, shoulders stiff, recognized that tiny flicker in his eyes. Restlessness, impatience, or something darker, something even he didn't want to name. The music swelled. The doors opened. And she stepped in. His bride, his wife, the girl who was supposed to be terrified of him, yet somehow made him feel the first crack in his own armor. She moved slowly, clutching a bouquet as if it were the only thing keeping her steady. Her dress was simple, soft, elegant, nothing like the opulence of mafia weddings, nothing forced, nothing loud. She was innocence walking toward a throne built from blood, and he felt it. Something low, something unwelcome, something real, settle beneath his ribs. When she reached him, she lifted her eyes, wide, curious, vulnerable. He wasn't prepared. Leonardo Vitale, she whispered, as if the name itself carried too much weight. His voice came out low, controlled. You may call me Leo. A pause. Her breath caught, almost imperceptibly. Leo. The way she said it, gentle, trembling, it nearly unraveled him. The vows were spoken, rings exchanged. A future bound not by love but by alliances and power. Yet the moment the priest announced them husband and wife, Leonardo didn't look triumphant. Not calculating, not even cold. He looked conflicted, like he wasn't sure whether he'd just gained something or lost something. He offered his arm, and she rested her hand lightly, too lightly, against him. He felt her tremble through the expensive fabric of his suit. He leaned in just enough for only her to hear, his breath warm against her ear. Do not fear me, he murmured. Not unless I give you reason to. Her heartbeat tripped. He felt it. And something about that reaction, something about her softness meeting his steel, ignited a slow, dangerous pull inside him. He wasn't used to this. He wasn't supposed to feel anything. Outside, cameras flashed. Soldiers lined up. Engines rumbled. She stayed quiet beside him, small compared to his towering presence, but trying, really trying, to keep her chin lifted. He admired that. When they reached the car, he opened the door for her, not because he was gentle, but because he couldn't let anyone else come close to what now belonged under his protection. You're shaking, he said quietly. I'm not used to, she hesitated, this world. You will be. His tone softened by a single degree. And you will not face it alone. She looked at him then, really looked, and he saw it. The beginning of trust, fragile, uncertain, but real. As the car pulled away, the rain thickening into a storm, Leonardo turned his head toward her. Voice low, smooth, almost a whisper. Tonight you enter my world completely. A pause. Not threatening, not claiming her body, but claiming her fate, her place, her safety. And I will protect every part of what is now mine. She didn't answer, but her pulse did. And Leonardo Vitale, the man who made nations tremble, silently wondered when, exactly, his heartbeat had begun to match hers. The Vitale mansion didn't sit in Verona. It ruled it, perched on a cliff of ancient stone, with thunder rolling above and the city lights burning below. The estate looked less like a home and more like a kingdom carved out of night. When the car stopped beneath the arched entrance, she hesitated before stepping out. It wasn't fear exactly, more like awe stitched with uncertainty. Leonardo walked around the car, rain catching on his shoulders, the faintest glimmer on his dark hair. He didn't rush her, didn't command. He simply held out his hand. A quiet invitation. She placed her palm in his. Warm, small, trembling, his fingers closed around hers. firm, steady, protective in a way that surprised them both. "Welcome home," he said. Home. The word hit her like a soft blow. Inside, the mansion opened into endless marble halls and high ceilings painted with gold. Firelight flickered against glass displays of old-world weapons and family heirlooms. Everything, with sharp edges and history, except for the subtle fragrance of jasmine drifting from somewhere deeper inside. Her steps echoed lightly. His were silent, controlled. "Is it always this quiet?" she whispered. "No," his voice lowered. "Only when I want it to be." She glanced up at him. "Are you letting it be quiet for me?" Leo didn't answer right away, but the truth hung between them. "Yes," he finally said. They reached the grand staircase, candlelight slipping across his features. In the shifting glow, the hardness in him seemed gentler, still powerful, still unyielding, but touched by something he didn't yet understand. She lifted her dress slightly, preparing to climb, but he placed a hand at the small of her back. "Slow?" he murmured. "You've had a long day." The warmth of his palm sent a ripple through her senses. Unexpected, uninvited, impossible to ignore. Upstairs, he guided her through a corridor lined with portraits of Vitale ancestors, all stern-faced and iron-willed. She wondered how many marriages in this family had been made from duty instead of desire. "Leo," she said softly, "do you ever get tired of being this?" Her hand motioned toward the world he carried on his shoulders. He stopped walking. For the first time, she saw something flicker in his eyes. Not anger, not coldness, weariness. "A king does not have the luxury of being tired," he said. "But a husband might." Her breath caught. He stepped closer, voice deepening. "I will not lie to you. My world is dangerous, brutal. But I do not want you afraid in it. Not of them, and not of me." "I'm not afraid of you," she whispered before she could stop herself. His jaw tightened, not in threat, but in something almost like relief. He opened the door to a bedroom. Not his, but hers. Candlelit, soft linens, a balcony, overlooking the storm-lit hills. It wasn't the room of a prisoner or a bargaining chip. It was a sanctuary. "I had this prepared for you," he said. "You didn't have to." "Yes," he murmured, stepping just close enough that she felt the heat of him. "I did." Their eyes held. There was a pull between them. Quiet, powerful, undeniable. Not possession, not dominance. Something slower. Something deeper. He lifted his hand, hesitated, and then brushed a stray strand of hair behind her ear. A touch so gentle it shook her. "Tonight," Leo said, voice low as thunder rolling in the distance, "you rest, you breathe, you learn that this house will not harm you." "And you?" she asked before she could stop herself. "Will you harm me?" His gaze sharpened, softened, conflicted all at once. "No," he said. A vow, a promise he didn't fully understand yet. "I will harm anyone who tries." Silence fell, heavy, warm, trembling with something new and unnamed. He stepped back, hand lingering in the air a second longer than it should have. "Sleep," he murmured. "Tomorrow you'll see the rest of your world." The door whispered shut, and for the first time since the wedding she exhaled, not because she felt safe, but because she wanted to. Night settled over the Vitale mansion like velvet, soft where it touched her, but heavy where it pressed against the secrets living in its walls. She should have been asleep, but sleep didn't come easily in a stranger's world, especially when the stranger was her husband. The storm outside had gentled to a low murmur. Lightning flashed occasionally, casting pale streaks across her ceiling. Every time it did, she felt a pulse of something in her chest. Fear, wonder, longing. She couldn't tell. A soft sound touched her ears. A footstep. Steady, measured, dangerous, but familiar. Her heart stilled. Another step. Then the door opened. Not quickly, not quietly, but with a purpose. Leonardo Vitale stood in the doorway, a silhouette carved from darkness and command. His shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled to his forearms, revealing strong, ink-marked skin. The storm highlight framed him, making him look like he'd walked out of a painting, designed to be worshipped. He didn't enter. He didn't speak. He simply watched her. Couldn't sleep, he finally asked, his voice low, unhurried, like he already knew the answer. She swallowed. No. His gaze swept the room, then returned to her face. A quiet evaluation, not of fear, but of honesty. May I? He asked. The question, soft, unexpected, sent warmth rushing to her throat. She nodded. Leo stepped inside, closing the door behind him. He didn't come closer, not yet. He simply leaned against the edge of her dresser, arms folded, eyes on her in that calm, heavy way that made her feel both seen and read. You're overwhelmed, he said. She didn't deny it. He let out a breath, slow, barely audible. I know I bring chaos with me. I know tonight changed your life. Perhaps more than mine. She blinked, surprised. You didn't choose this either. No, he admitted, but I don't resent it. He pushed away from the dresser and moved closer, not touching, but near enough that she felt the warmth of him. What do you resent? She asked softly. His breath caught, so subtle she almost missed it. Something shifted in his expression, something raw, something not meant for the world but somehow intended for her. I resent, he murmured, that I cannot promise you a gentle life. A storm of emotion tightened her chest. You don't have to promise gentle, she whispered. Just honest. The words slipped out before she could think. But his reaction, stillness, followed by a slow lowering of his lashes, told her they hit deeper than she intended. He stepped closer. Slow, heavy, intentional. The air changed, deepened, wrapped around them both like warm silk. She felt his presence before she felt his breath. And she felt his breath before she heard his whisper. Honesty, then. A pause. Quiet thunder. I walked into this room because I could feel your heartbeat from the hallway. Her lips parted. You what? Leo leaned just close enough for the shadows to blend between them. Your heartbeat, he repeated, softer now. It wasn't afraid. It was calling. Her pulse stumbled. He didn't touch her, but he reached up slowly and hovered his hand near her cheek, close enough that she felt the heat, the near contact, the promise of something deeper. I shouldn't be here, he whispered. Not tonight. Why not? She breathed. His jaw tightened with barely controlled restraint. Because I want something I shouldn't take yet. The room froze. Not in fear, in awareness, in the electric stillness that lives between two people who feel the same pull, but don't say it. Out loud, her voice trembled, not with fear but with dangerous honesty. What do you want, Leo? His eyes locked onto hers, dark, searching, unable to lie. You, he whispered. The single word fell like heat against her skin, soft, reverent, aching with every emotion he'd never allowed himself to feel. But not with fear, he added. Not with uncertainty. Only when you stand before me, willing. Silence throbbed between them, thick with a closeness neither could step away from. Leo drew back, just enough. His voice was barely a breath. When that night comes, he whispered, I will claim every part of your world. Not your body, not your innocence, but everything deeper. Her breath trembled. He turned, hand lingering on the doorframe before he spoke again. Quiet, rough-edged, sincere. Sleep now, he murmured. You're safe, even from me. The door closed, and she understood for the first time that her heart wasn't afraid of Leonardo Vitale. It was waiting for him. Morning in the Vitale mansion didn't arrive gently. It entered like a quiet king, sunlight cutting through tall windows, warm and golden spilling, across marble floors that had seen far too many secrets. Somewhere in the distance, men murmured in Italian, their footsteps echoing with purpose. Her world had changed overnight. But strangely, she didn't wake with fear. She woke with awareness of herself, of him, of the space between them that felt like an invisible thread pulling tighter with every breath. She stepped onto the balcony, the breeze brushing her hair, the scent of citrus from the estate, gardens drifting up like a soft greeting. It was peaceful. Peaceful enough that she almost forgot who ruled this place. Almost. A voice behind her cut through the quiet. Smooth, low, unmistakable. You're awake early. She turned. Leonardo stood in the doorway of her room, jacket off, shirt fitted neatly across broad shoulders, the first few buttons undone. The sun lit the edge of his profile, turning him into something both dangerous and breathtaking. She wasn't sure which part of him scared her more. The man the world feared, or the man who had whispered to her last night with a tenderness that didn't belong to monsters. "I'm still getting used to this place," she said. His eyes softened just enough to be noticeable. "You will." Leo stepped closer, slow and measured, as if giving her time to step back. She didn't. Not even. When he reached her balcony rail and stood beside her, looking out over the endless fields of his legacy. "This world," he murmured, "is not simple. And now, whether either of us wanted it, it belongs to you as much as it does to me." Her breath caught. "You mean the marriage?" "I mean the arrangement," he corrected gently. "Our lives, our choices, our consequences." There was something in his tone, something heavy, something unspoken. As if he wasn't warning her, but himself. "What do you expect from me?" she asked. He looked at her then, really looked. Not as a bride forced into his world, not as a symbol or a responsibility or a fragile thing. He looked at her like she was the first truth he'd allowed himself to see in years. "I expect honesty," he said. "And courage. You have more of it than you realize." Her pulse fluttered. "And what will you give me in return?" she whispered. His gaze darkened, not with possession, but with promise. "Protection," he said. "Choice." A pause. "And patience." She wasn't prepared for that last word. A Mafia king offering patience felt more intimate than a kiss. "You barely know me," she murmured. Leo's voice lowered. "No, but I know what I feel." Heat rushed through her chest, not from desire, but from the quiet sincerity threading through his tone. "Yesterday you were only a name," he continued. "Today, you are the first thing I think of." She froze. The world seemed to tilt, slow and soft, around those words. He turned his body toward her fully now, his presence washing over her like warm shadow. "There will be expectations," Leo said quietly. "Public appearances, dinners, eyes watching us, analyzing every movement." "Because I'm your wife?" "Because you're my queen." The words weren't romantic. They weren't meant to be, but they landed deep, heavy, and terrifyingly real. Her lips parted. "My queen, in a world I don't understand. That's why you're not alone in it." He reached out, hesitated for a fraction of a heartbeat, and then let his fingertips graze her wrist, a simple touch, barely there, but her breath stilled. His voice dropped to a near whisper. "I won't push you, not into my world, and not into me. But if we are to survive what this life demands, I need you beside me, not behind me." The wind fluttered between them, carrying the scent of orange blossoms and the weight of a future neither one had chosen but would now have to face together. Her voice trembled, but her resolve didn't. "Then teach me," she said. "Teach me everything." Leonardo's breath deepened, a slow inhale that sounded almost like relief. "Then listen carefully," he murmured, "because the first lesson is trust. Not a command, not a demand, a beginning." The rest of the morning moved like a slow breath through the Vitale mansion. Servants passed quietly through the halls. Guards rotated like shadows with pulse and purpose. The world outside was waking, but inside something else was waking too. Her place, her role, and the dangerous gravity pulling her toward the man she'd married. Leo walked with her down the grand staircase, his steps silent, hers light but uncertain. His men straightened when they saw her, some with curiosity, some with caution. He noticed. "You don't lower your gaze," Leo murmured near her ear without turning his head. "It tells them you are not intimidated." Good. She hadn't even meant to hold her head high, but the approval threading his voice, the quiet pride, made her want to do it again. They moved toward a room she hadn't entered before. Heavy oak doors. 2 guards posted. Outside. A chill of tension rippled through her. "Leo," she paused. "Where are we going?" He pushed the door open. "To understand the world," he said softly, "you must see it." His office was nothing like the romantic elegance of the mansion. This room was a kingdom of strategy. A long wooden desk, maps of territories, files stacked with precision, weapons displayed behind glass as if they were relics, not instruments. Leo closed the door behind them. The atmosphere changed immediately. Fewer shadows, more truth. "This," he said, stepping into the room, "is where every decision is made." She scanned the space, feeling the weight of authority settle around her shoulders. "You bring me here now?" Her voice was soft, unsure. "Yes." He looked at her with a seriousness she hadn't seen before. "Because trust is not earned with words. It's earned with transparency." He moved behind the desk and opened a drawer, retrieving a slim, leather-bound file. He held it, out to her. Her breath hitched. "What is this?" "Your protection." She hesitated before taking it. Inside were documents, photos, a few profiles. Men she didn't know. Some stared from grainy images, some from surveillance angles. Criminal, political, dangerous. "This," she whispered, flipping through. "These are the people who want to hurt you?" "No," Leo said calmly. "These are the people who would hurt you, to get to me." She froze. The world tilted. Her throat tightened. Reality arrived like a cold wind through an open door. Her voice wavered. "I didn't ask for this life." "No one asks for the crown," he said gently. "But you wear it now, and you will not wear it blindly." She sank into the chair opposite him. "What if I can't handle it?" she whispered. Leo didn't hesitate. "You can." "How do you know?" "Because you're still sitting here," he said softly. Not running, not breaking, learning. Something warm and unfamiliar spread through her chest. He came around the desk and leaned against the edge beside her, close enough that she felt the warmth radiating from his body, far enough that she knew he'd move if she needed space. "You asked me to teach you everything," he continued. "Protection is the first lesson. You must know who your enemies are, and you must know that none of them will touch you as long as I stand." She looked up at him, the vulnerability in her eyes not weakness, but trust beginning to bloom. "And what about you?" she asked quietly. "Are you my enemy?" He didn't move, didn't blink, just let the question settle between them, heavy and intimate. "No," he said softly. "Not today, not tomorrow, not ever." Her breath trembled. "Then what are you to me?" A muscle in his jaw ticked. He leaned in, just enough that his voice brushed her skin. "I am the man who will burn this entire world before I let it harm you." Her heart thudded. Not in fear, in recognition. She wasn't falling for the Mafia king. She was falling for the man behind the kingdom. And Leo. Leo realized he had just told her the one truth he had never told anyone. The storm rolled in like a quiet warning. Thunder cracked over the Vitale mansion roof, rattling the windows as she stood in the dim hallway, arms wrapped around herself. Moonlight spilled through the skylight, casting her in soft, silver shadows. She shouldn't have been awake, but sleep felt impossible in a world that wasn't hers yet. A world ruled by a man whose mere presence could bend gravity. She sensed him before she heard him. Leonardo Vitale, Italy's most feared Mafia king, and the man she was slowly learning to call her husband. He didn't step into the hallway at once. He simply appeared behind her, the air thickening with his presence. Warm, magnetic, dangerous. She inhaled sharply at the faint scent of his cologne, grounding her in the impossible reality of him. Couldn't sleep. His voice was low, steady, vibrating through the quiet like distant thunder. She turned. The storm, it's loud. His gaze swept over her. Bare feet. Silk nightdress. Trembling fingers. Not fear, exactly. Something else entirely. Curiosity, vulnerability, strength hidden beneath it all. Lightning flashed, illuminating him. Jaw tight, shirt slightly undone at the collar, hair tousled. He looked less like a king, and more like a man battling shadows he alone understood. He didn't approach, yet the space between them crackled. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered. "You should," he said instantly, surprising even himself. Her breath caught. His control, always perfect, always cold, was faltering. She felt it, every second of it. She took a cautious step toward him. "Leonardo." He flinched ever so slightly at the intimacy of her voice, yet did not pull back when her fingertips brushed his forearm. A spark, a mistake, a beginning. His jaw clenched. You have no idea what you're doing. Then tell me. Thunder rolled again. The room seemed to shrink, focusing them into a private world. He exhaled slowly, a release years in the making. Tentatively, he lifted a hand and tucked a stray strand of her hair behind her ear, letting his fingers graze her cheek. Warm, protective. Dangerous, she shivered. Every time I get close to you, he murmured, voice low, I lose myself. Her heartbeat stumbled. I don't want you to lose control, she whispered. He leaned closer, forehead nearly touching hers. You're the only one who makes me want to. Her lips parted, breath trembling. He cupped her face. His thumb traced her lower lip. Soft, reverent, intoxicating. You drive me insane, he whispered. And you terrify me, she breathed back. Good, he said, voice rough, almost a growl. Maybe you'll finally understand what you do to me. Silence fell, broken only by the storm outside and the quickening rhythm of their pulses. Finally, he kissed her. Not gentle, not forceful. A confession, slow and consuming. A promise that lingered long after he pulled away. His hands rested at her waist, holding her close. Her fingers clutched his shirt, tethering herself. To him, as if the world outside could vanish, and they would still remain. When he finally drew back, forehead against hers, breaths mingled. That's why I stayed away, he murmured. Because once I touched you, I knew I wouldn't be able to stop. Her voice trembled. Then don't. He lifted her chin. His thumb brushed her cheek. Stay with me tonight, not as something I own, but as someone I cannot lose. Her knees weakened. Leonardo pressed a soft kiss to her forehead, a gentle claim of protection and intimacy. The storm outside raged, but inside a different kind of storm had broken, the one between their hearts. Morning arrived quietly in the Vitale mansion, but its calm felt deceptive. The sunlight spilled across polished marble floors, gilding the edges of opulent furniture and reflecting off the ornate chandeliers. Yet the real tension simmered not in the house, but between two people navigating a fragile, dangerous bond. Leonardo Vitale entered her room without knocking. Not out of rudeness, but necessity. His presence commanded space, attention, and obedience, but not through fear today. Today, he tested something far more difficult. Trust. Good morning, he said softly, though his dark eyes betrayed the intensity he carried. She looked up from the balcony where she had been staring out at the city below. Good morning, he studied her. Not like a husband inspecting a bride. Not like a king assessing a subject. He looked at her like a man measuring the strength of a storm he could not control. You slept well? He asked. She shook her head slightly. Not really. He approached and perched on the edge of the bed, not too close, not too far, creating a delicate tension she could feel in her chest. Do you trust me? He asked. The question struck her differently than she expected. She nodded. I want to. He exhaled. Good. It was the first test of many, he warned silently. Loyalty, courage, honesty. These were more important than obedience in his world, and he was determined to see if she could meet them. Leonardo stood, walking toward the grand window, his back to her. I'm leaving for the day, he said, voice low, almost intimate. Business outside, dangerous business. Her pulse quickened. You don't want me to come? He turned, dark eyes catching hers in the morning light. No, this is not your world, yet. She stepped closer, but he raised a hand, stopping her with the gentlest authority. Stay here. Stay safe. And above all, his voice softened. Stay true to yourself. That is the only way you survive this life, she swallowed. I don't know if I can do it. He crossed the room swiftly, taking both her hands in his. You can. You already have. Heat rushed through her veins. Not desire, exactly, but recognition of the pull he had over her. Heart. He leaned forward, close enough that his breath brushed her cheek. Everything I've shown you, the storm, the danger, my world, it's only part of it. I need to see if you're ready for the rest. You cannot fear me. You cannot doubt yourself. Or me. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. I don't fear you. He tilted his head, a slow smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Good. Because if you did, you'd never survive being mine. A pause. Tension hung heavy. She felt every beat of his pulse as though it echoed her own. Leonardo, she breathed. What if I fail? He stepped closer, pressing a finger lightly under her chin. Then I will be there to catch you. Every time. But I don't think you will. For the first time, she realized something profound. Leonardo Vitale, the man who commanded kingdoms and terrified enemies, had allowed himself to be vulnerable with her. Not completely, not yet, but enough that she felt it, deep in her chest, and her own defenses began to soften. Then I will try, she said firmly. He studied her, searching her eyes, and nodded slightly. That is all I ask. The moment stretched, fragile as glass, electric as the storm that had brought them together. And then he stepped back, kissed the back of her hand, and walked toward the door. Not leaving her, not abandoning her, but letting her know today the first test had begun. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, a quiet understanding settled between them. Trust was dangerous. Desire was inevitable. And the path ahead would change everything. The city breathed beneath the Vitale mansion, unaware of the storm brewing in its shadowed corners. Leonardo Vitale moved through his office with calculated precision, each step silent yet deliberate, like a predator tracking an unseen threat. Maps were spread across his desk, files stacked in perfect order. His men had briefed him on the tensions stirring within rival families. But none of it mattered more than the quiet storm forming inside the walls of his home, because she had stayed behind. She, his bride, his student in the dangerous game of his world. His weakness and his obsession. He watched her from the doorway, the faintest smile tugging at the corner of his lips. There she was, standing by the balcony, sunlight painting her in gold. She was learning, observing, already holding herself with a quiet strength he hadn't expected. She turned, sensing his gaze. Leonardo, she said softly, almost questioning. Good, he murmured, stepping closer. You are thinking and learning. That is the first step to surviving in my world. Her pulse quickened, not from fear, but from him. From the pull of his presence, the magnetic danger that was always just beneath the surface. You make it sound like a game, she said. Because it is, he replied, voice low, almost playful, but edged with steel. A game of shadows, trust, deception, power, and desire. Her eyes widened. Desire? He stepped closer, the air between them thickening. Yes, desire is as dangerous as any weapon. And right now, he tilted his head, letting the morning light catch his dark eyes. It is all I feel for you. Her chest tightened. She had expected commands, lessons, maybe threats. Not this. Confession wrapped in restraint. Leonardo, she whispered, why do you... He cut her off with a soft hush, his hand brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Because if I speak fully, I might never stop. The storm outside had quieted, leaving only the soft hum of the city and the distant cry of gulls. Inside, the storm was electric. He circled her slowly, not touching, just measuring, calculating, savoring the tension. You are learning the rules, he said, but now I will test you. Her heartbeat quickened. Test me? He leaned close, his breath warm against her cheek. Yes, to see if you can trust me, even when everything in this world screams that you shouldn't. Her gaze held his, unwavering, though a tremor of anticipation ran through her. And if I can't? He smiled, a slow, dangerous smile that promised both protection and chaos. Then I will guide you, step by step, but I suspect you can. A pause. Silence. Only the two of them in the vast, echoing room, the air thick with anticipation, electricity, and the unspoken understanding that something unbreakable was forming between them. He straightened, stepping back just enough to release the tension, though the intensity in his eyes remained. This is the beginning. Every day, every lesson, every shadow you face in this house. It is a choice, yours to make, and mine to protect. She exhaled slowly, the weight of his words sinking in. I understand. He reached the door, then turned, letting his gaze linger. Good, because soon, you'll see that. Trusting me is not optional, it's survival. She watched him leave, and as the door closed behind him, she realized something dangerous and thrilling. She wasn't afraid of Leonardo Vitale. She was ready to follow him into the shadows. And she knew, without a doubt, that he would never let her fall. The Vitale mansion was deceptively quiet that evening. Marble floors gleamed under the chandeliers, reflecting the soft glow of candlelight. Every corner held the weight of secrets, decisions made in shadows, whispers carried across generations. She moved carefully through the halls, Leonardo Vitale's words echoing in her mind. Trust is survival. She repeated it to herself like a mantra, feeling it strengthen her resolve as she navigated the unfamiliar corridors. But nothing in the mansion was truly quiet. A subtle shift in the air made her pause. The softest of sounds, a creak of the floor, a shadow, out of place, alerted her instincts. She wasn't afraid, not yet. She had learned to recognize the difference between danger and presence, and this felt like danger. Before she could react, the figure stepped from the shadows. A man, unknown, sharp-eyed, dressed in the understated elegance of someone who moved in the criminal world. He froze when he saw her, but the hesitation didn't last. Who are you? She demanded, voice steady, though her pulse raced. The man's eyes flicked toward the grand staircase, then back to her. I'm looking for Leonardo Vitale. Her breath caught. How had someone breached the mansion? How had he slipped past the guards? Why? She asked, carefully keeping her tone calm. Before he could answer, a shadow appeared behind him, a whisper of movement, deliberate, lethal. Leonardo Vitale. He didn't run. He didn't even raise his voice. He simply stepped forward, slow, commanding, every inch the man whose name alone inspired fear. Step aside, Leonardo said, low and dangerous. The intruder froze, the tension snapping in the air like a drawn wire. He tried to speak, but Leonardo's gaze, cold, precise, unyielding, stopped him before the first word left his lips. She instinctively moved closer to Leonardo, finding safety in the magnetic pull of his presence. This is my home, Leonardo continued, his voice smooth, almost conversational, yet carrying the weight of inevitability. You are no longer welcome here. The intruder hesitated. Fear and respect mingled on his face, but he didn't leave. Not yet. Leonardo's hand brushed against her arm. Not a touch of possession, but a shield. Leave, he said again, sharper this time. Finally, the man backed away, retreating into the shadows from which he came. Every step echoed, a reminder that danger could never be fully erased, but also that Leonardo Vitale was always one step ahead. She exhaled, relief mingling with an unexpected thrill. Her heart still raced, but not from fear, alone. She had witnessed something few could. The man she was married to, the one who commanded kingdoms and feared no one, had protected her without compromise, without hesitation. Leonardo turned to her, his dark eyes softening slightly. Are you unharmed? I am, she said, her voice steady now. He stepped closer, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Good, because you must. Understand something. Every choice, every action in this world comes with consequences. And my first responsibility is always to you. She felt the weight of his words, heavy and intimate, and for the first time, she realized the depth of what it meant to be in Leonardo Vitale's life. Not just as a bride, not just as a student of his dangerous world, but as someone he would protect at any cost. Her voice trembled, soft but certain. I trust you. A small, almost imperceptible smile crossed his lips. Good. That is the first real lesson. The mansion fell silent again, but she knew, deep in her chest, that this was only the beginning. Trust had been tested tonight. Desire had been kindled. And the shadows of the Vitale Empire loomed closer than ever. Yet she felt safe in him, and that realization was more intoxicating and terrifying than anything else she had ever known. Night had fallen over the Vitale mansion, cloaking its grandeur in shadows. Candles flickered in the hallways, casting wavering light across marble floors, gilded walls, and priceless paintings. The world outside was quiet, but inside, tension and desire simmered like a flame threatening to ignite. She moved silently through the hall, Leonardo Vitale's presence lingering in every corner, even when he wasn't near. Each step echoed softly, a reminder that she was no longer a guest in a stranger's home. She belonged here. And yet, she still felt like she was walking on the edge of a cliff. Leonardo? Her voice broke the silence, soft but intentional. From the shadows he emerged, always sudden, always magnetic. The moonlight kissed his sharp features, his dark eyes catching hers with that familiar intensity that made her heart race. "You're still awake," he said, stepping closer. Not a word of reproach, just observation. "I couldn't sleep," she admitted. "Too many thoughts." His gaze softened. Not completely, but enough for her to feel the warmth beneath the darkness. He came closer, slow, deliberate, his presence enveloping her like a tide she couldn't resist. "Thoughts of the mansion, of the danger?" he asked. "No," she said, shaking her head. "Thoughts of you." His lips quirked in a brief, almost imperceptible smile. "Is that dangerous?" "Maybe," she whispered. The distance between them shrank. A magnetic pull drew her closer, closer until she could feel his warmth, his steady heartbeat beneath the tailored suit that concealed the man the world feared. Leonardo's hand hovered near hers, brushing her fingers with the lightest of touches. A forbidden spark ignited where they met. "You feel that?" he murmured. She swallowed hard. "Yes." "Good," he said, voice low, dangerous, but edged with something almost tender. "Because feeling is the first step. Desire follows. Control is a distant memory after that." Her pulse quickened. She wanted to step back, but she didn't. Something deep inside urged her forward, to feel, to confront the danger, the attraction, the inevitable pull between them. He leaned closer. Her breath caught in her throat as the heat of him brushed against her skin. "I shouldn't," he whispered, though his proximity betrayed him. "I shouldn't allow this." "Allow what?" she asked, voice trembling with anticipation. "This," he said, and his fingers brushed her cheek, tracing the line of her jaw, soft yet commanding. "This pull, this fire. You have no idea the control I've had to maintain. Until now." She closed her eyes for a moment, letting herself feel it. The magnetic tension, the forbidden intimacy, the undeniable truth that in his arms, in his presence, she was powerless. And yet, she didn't want to be. "Leonardo," she breathed. He lowered his forehead to hers, eyes closed, a whisper between them. "Every rule I've lived by shattered the moment I saw you standing in my home." A shiver ran through her. Desire and fear collided, an intoxicating storm she had no defense against. "I don't want to frighten you," he murmured. "You don't," she replied. You make me feel alive." He smiled, just barely, before pulling back slightly, the space between them charged and aching. "Good. Because from now on, you'll need to feel alive. And afraid. And everything in between. Survival demands it." She nodded, understanding the weight behind his words. Not just survival in the Mafia world, but survival in Leonardo Vitale's life. And for the first time she realized she wouldn't want to survive without him. The mansion's halls were silent again, but silence never meant peace in the Vitale home. Every shadow seemed to whisper secrets. Every corner held a memory of power, danger, and obsession. She wandered into the library, drawn by the familiar weight of books the scent of aged paper, mingling with the faint trace of Leonardo Vitale's cologne. He was here somewhere. She could feel him, even without seeing him. "You shouldn't be wandering alone." Leonardo's voice came from behind the tall shelves. She turned. There he was, the man who commanded fear and respect in equal measure, leaning casually against the doorframe, eyes dark and unreadable. Yet there was something softer in his gaze tonight, something that made her heart ache with longing. "I could say the same for you," she replied, stepping closer, though her pulse raced at the nearness of him. He pushed off the frame and closed the distance, a slow predator's grace. "Tonight," he murmured, voice low and intimate, "I want you to see something." Curiosity and caution warred within her. "What is it?" He led her deeper into the library, past towering shelves, until they reached a hidden door. His hand brushed hers, deliberate, sending a shiver up her spine. The door opened onto a small, private study, walls lined with maps, files, and photographs pinned in meticulous order. "This," he said, motioning to the room, "is where the real decisions happen, where the shadows are mapped, where the future of the family, and everyone connected to it, is decided." Her breath caught. "It's overwhelming." He stepped close, letting his hand hover near hers, though he did not touch. "It is. But now you see why you must trust me. You must understand everything, even the parts I would rather shield you from." She nodded slowly, absorbing the gravity of the room, the gravity of him. I want to understand." He studied her, his eyes lingering on hers with intensity. "Good, because understanding is the only way you survive, and the only way I can let you into my life completely." Her chest tightened as the words settled between them. She realized that trust was not just about obedience. It was about surrender. Surrender to him, to his world, and to the undeniable pull she felt in his presence. Leonardo stepped closer, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. "Do you trust me?" She swallowed hard. "Yes." He smiled faintly, dark and dangerous, before lowering his forehead to hers. "Then you will see everything, and you will survive. Because I will not let anything harm you. Ever." A long pause followed, their breaths mingling, hearts beating in a silent rhythm. She felt it, the tension, the desire, the promise that nothing outside these walls could break them. "And now," he whispered, voice almost trembling with a rare vulnerability, "I want to show you what it feels like to be completely mine, even when the world is at its most dangerous." Her knees weakened. "Leonardo," he cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheek. "No hesitation tonight, no fear, only us, only trust, only in everything we feel." The hidden study became their sanctuary. The shadows around them melted into the world of the Vitale Empire, a dangerous kingdom where only loyalty and desire held power. And in that, intimate silence, she realized she would follow him anywhere, face any danger, and surrender to the storm that was Leonardo Vitale, because he had already claimed her heart, and tonight he would claim it fully. The clock struck midnight, but the Vitale mansion felt suspended in time. Outside, the city slept, unaware of the passions and power playing out in the shadows of the empire. She found herself in the private study again, drawn by the magnetic pull of Leonardo Vitale. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that only built when danger and desire existed in equal measure. He was waiting, seated behind his desk, but his posture was different tonight, less guarded, more vulnerable. His dark eyes tracked her every step as she approached. "You came," he said softly. "I couldn't stay away," she admitted, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and longing. He rose, crossing the space between them with silent authority. Each step drew her closer to him, to the world she was slowly learning to inhabit, a world of shadows, power, and desire. "Sit," he commanded gently, gesturing to the chair opposite him. She obeyed, heart hammering in her chest. He studied her, his gaze penetrating, as though he could see every thought, every secret, every pulse of emotion that fluttered beneath her skin. "I have to confess something," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper, though it carried weight, that made the room feel smaller. Her pulse quickened. "What is it?" He stepped closer, stopping just short of her. "I've never allowed myself to feel this way about anyone." Her breath caught. "Leonardo, I've commanded empires," he continued, voice rough with restrained emotion. "Fought wars in the shadows and controlled lives with nothing but a glance. Yet with you, I feel powerless, and that terrifies me more than any enemy ever could." The room seemed to shrink around them, tension tightening like a drawn bow. She leaned forward slightly, unable to resist the gravitational pull of him. "You are mine in ways I can't explain," he murmured, fingers brushing lightly against hers. "Not possession, not ownership, but something far deeper, something dangerous." "Dangerous?" she echoed, shivering at the intimacy of his words. "Yes," he whispered, closing the small distance between them. "Because every moment I spend near you, I lose myself. I lose control. And I don't want to. I can't imagine a life where you aren't part of every heartbeat, every breath." Her eyes glistened in the candlelight, and she swallowed hard. "I feel the same, Leonardo. I've never felt like this before." He lowered his forehead to hers, letting the warmth of his breath brush her cheek. "Then we are both lost," he murmured, "lost to everything else, except each other." Her fingers traced the line of his jaw, tentative but hungry. "Then don't find your way back," she whispered. A dark, almost predatory smile curved his lips. "I never want to," he admitted. His hands moved to cup her face, thumb caressing her cheek, pulling her closer until the space between them vanished entirely. Their lips met, slowly, deliberately, tasting the tension, the desire, the unspoken promises of trust and surrender. It wasn't just a kiss. It was a confession, a binding, a declaration that whatever storms awaited them outside, here in this moment they were unbreakable. When they finally parted, breaths mingled, hearts racing in sync. Leonardo's eyes, dark and intense, held hers. "Tonight you are mine," he whispered, voice husky with emotion. "And you are mine," she replied, voice trembling, yet full of certainty. The night stretched on, and for the first time, she understood the true power of Leonardo. Vitale, not as a king of an empire, but as a man who could claim a heart so completely it became inseparable from his own. The Vitale mansion rarely slept, and tonight was no exception. Shadows twisted along the walls as Leonardo Vitale paced his private office, the weight of decisions pressing heavily on him. Outside, the city whispered rumors, danger lurking in every alley. Inside, a different storm raged, one of desire, trust, and unspoken power. She entered quietly, sensing his tension before she saw him. Leonardo's dark eyes caught hers. Immediately, intensity blazing like fire. "You shouldn't be here," he said, though his tone lacked its usual edge. "I had to see you," she replied, stepping closer, the click of her heels against the marble floor, echoing softly. "Something tells me tonight isn't just about us." His gaze softened, a fleeting glimpse of vulnerability passing through his sharp features. "You're right," he admitted. "There's an alliance being proposed, one that could shift the balance of power. I need to hear it, and decide quickly." She moved to stand beside him, sensing the weight of responsibility that never left him. "Tell me, what's happening?" she urged, voice steady, though her heart raced. A folder lay open on the desk, filled with documents, contracts, and photographs. Leonardo gestured toward it. "A rival family has proposed a union, an alliance through marriage and business. It could secure peace or betray us. The decision is mine alone." Her fingers brushed his arm instinctively. "And you trust me to stay here, even while danger lurks?" He turned, studying her with that magnetic intensity that always left her breathless. I trust you, because I know you understand me. You understand this life, this empire, better than anyone I've ever let close. The moment was fragile, charged with electricity. She realized how much she had already become part of his world, how inseparable her heart had grown from his own. Leonardo, she began softly. He lifted a hand, resting it lightly against her waist. Stay with me tonight. We face this together. Not as an obligation, but as a bond. Her chest tightened. Desire and loyalty tangled in her veins, the danger outside only sharpening the intensity of the moment. I am with you, she whispered, eyes locking with his. He exhaled, leaning close, his lips brushing the shell of her ear. Good, because loyalty is tested in the shadows, but desire cannot hide, and you have no idea how dangerous that makes you to me. She shivered, not from fear, but from the pull he exerted over her. She knew his world was treacherous, filled with men who would do anything to challenge him. Yet here, in his private domain, she felt untouchable, as long as he was by her side. Tonight, he murmured, his lips near hers, we are not just man and woman, we are a force, and nothing can stand against that. The candlelight flickered, casting their shadows long and intertwined across the walls. Desire burned hotter than fear, a dangerous mix that neither could resist. He pressed a kiss to her forehead, soft yet commanding, a silent promise of protection and possession. Trust me, he whispered. I do, she replied, leaning into him, letting her heart synchronize with his own. The storm outside was nothing compared to the storm between them, one of desire, loyalty, and the dangerous, intoxicating bond of two hearts now inseparable. And Leonardo Vitale, the man who ruled an empire with fear and precision, had just made her a part of it, completely. The Vitale mansion had never felt so tense. Every shadow seemed to whisper secrets. Every creaking floorboard carried a warning. Tonight was not just another night. It was a test of loyalty, trust, and the unbreakable bond between two hearts caught in the dangerous world of Mafia empires. Leonardo Vitale paced in his private study, sharp eyes scanning every report, every message, every potential threat. His mind was a fortress. But tonight, it was her presence that made it feel vulnerable. She stepped into the room, quiet but determined. Leonardo. He didn't look at her immediately. Instead, he measured the distance between them, the air thick with tension. You shouldn't be here, he said finally, voice low, dangerous. I told you, she replied, stepping closer. I am with you, in every danger, every shadow. His gaze finally met hers, intense and dark, searching, testing. This is the ultimate test, he murmured. Not of strength, not of power, but of the bond we share. Can you survive what I have to face tonight and still remain mine? Her pulse quickened. I don't just want to survive. I want to face it with you. A flicker of admiration and something deeper crossed his features. You are fearless, he said softly, stepping closer. His hand brushed her arm lightly, sending an electric shiver through her. And that terrifies me, in the most dangerous way. The night deepened, shadows stretching across the walls as Leonardo revealed the stakes. Rival families had moved against them. Betrayal was closer than ever, and he needed to trust her fully, not just as a bride, but as a partner in his empire of power and passion. I have to leave soon, he said, voice rough with emotion. And I cannot let you be involved. Yet, you must understand everything. Can you handle it? Her eyes burned with certainty. I can. I will. A storm raged outside, mirroring the storm inside. Leonardo's hand found hers, fingers, intertwining with a possessive yet tender grip. Then stay close. Tonight, nothing can be predictable. Not the city, not the enemy, not us. She leaned against him, heart racing, every nerve alight with anticipation. I trust you. I am yours. He inhaled sharply, the weight of her words sinking deep. For a moment, the cold, commanding king of the Mafia empire allowed himself to be vulnerable. His lips brushed her temple, a promise of protection and desire intertwined. You don't understand, he murmured, voice husky. How much I've fought to not let this consume me. And yet every moment with you, every touch, every look, I lose control. Her fingers traced his jawline, tentative but desperate. Then lose control, she whispered. Lose. Control with me. The tension between them ignited. An intimate storm that no walls could contain. Desire, fear, and trust collided as they clung to each other, hearts pounding in sync. In that moment, Leonardo Vitale was not just a king or a feared mafia boss. He was a man, broken only by the force of love and obsession she had awakened in him. He pressed a kiss to her lips, not gentle, not hurried, but consuming, binding, declaring what words could never fully capture. She responded with equal fire, surrendering to the inevitable, intoxicating pull of the man who had claimed every part of her heart. When they finally parted, breaths mingling, eyes locked, Leonardo whispered almost reverently, "Tonight we survive, and tomorrow we rise together." Outside, the storm raged. Inside, a new force had awakened, an unbreakable bond between two hearts, fearless in love, unstoppable in desire, and untouchable by the world. The Vitale mansion was bathed in the golden glow of dawn. The storm of the night passed, leaving the city washed in quiet light. But inside, the storm had only transformed, shifting from danger to desire, from tension to an unshakable bond that could never be broken. Leonardo Vitale stood in the grand hall, impeccably dressed, his dark eyes scanning the horizon of his empire. The rival families had been dealt with, threats neutralized, and the balance of power restored. Yet his focus was not on the city, the empire, or the battles he had won. It was on her. She entered, soft footsteps echoing on marble floors, her presence both a balm and a spark. Her hair cascaded over her shoulders, her eyes bright with determination and longing. "Leonardo," she whispered, voice trembling yet strong. He crossed the hall in 3 long strides, closing the distance between them. "You're here," he murmured, his lips brushing the shell of her ear. "You stayed, even after everything." "I am yours," she said, heart racing completely. No shadows, no fear, just us. He pulled her into his arms, their bodies pressed together in the quiet aftermath of chaos. His hands traced her curves, gentle yet possessive, as if memorizing every inch of her. "You have no idea," he murmured, voice husky, "how long I've waited for this. For you. For us." Her fingers tangled in his hair, tugging him closer. "I've been waiting too. For you to let me in. Fully. No half-truths, no barriers." He smiled darkly, the dangerous, intoxicating Leonardo Vitale everyone feared now tempered by. The man who loved her fiercely. "Tonight," he whispered, "you are mine in every sense. No shadows, no games. No one can touch what I claim." Desire and emotion collided in a kiss that was slow, consuming, the culmination of every touch, every glance, every whispered word that had passed between them. It was more than passion. It was trust, surrender, and the fierce, unbreakable bond that only they could share. He stepped back slightly, forehead resting against hers, letting his gaze travel over her face with reverence and need. "From this moment, everything I am, everything I own, every heartbeat, is yours, forever." Tears glistened in her eyes, not of fear, but of the overwhelming realization that the man who ruled an empire, who commanded fear and respect, had chosen her entirely, without hesitation. "And I am yours," she breathed, pressing her lips to his again. "Forever." Leonardo lifted her effortlessly, carrying her to the balcony overlooking the city that now bowed to his will. The sunrise painted them in gold, a promise of hope, desire, and unshakable unity. "This is not just love," he said, voice low, almost a growl. "It's devotion, it's possession, protection, and a fire that cannot be extinguished. And I claim it, claim you, forever." She clung to him, hearts beating as one. "Then take me, Leonardo. Not just tonight, but always." And he did. Every kiss, every touch, every whispered word was a claim, a promise, and a surrender, beautiful, dangerous, and eternal. The storm outside had passed, but inside the Vitale mansion, a new empire had been built. Not of fear or power, but of love, trust, and an obsession that neither time nor danger could ever break. Leonardo Vitale had finally claimed everything, every part of her heart, every inch of her being. And in return, she had given him hers, unreserved, untamed, and forever. The city below might still whisper about the feared Mafia king, but here, in these golden halls, the only truth that mattered was theirs. Two hearts, intertwined, unbreakable, and claimed forever. The story of Leonardo Vitale and the woman who captured his heart may have reached its climax, but their world of desire, danger, and unbreakable bonds is far from over. If you felt the heat of their passion, the tension of every whispered secret, and the thrill of every dangerous choice, don't let the journey end here. Subscribe now to follow every heartbeat, every stolen glance, every twist of the Mafia empire. Stay with us and experience more cinematic love stories that will grip your soul, ignite your imagination, and leave you breathless, just like Leonardo and his queen. Hit subscribe and let the dark romance continue. Your next obsession is waiting.